What's going on, Tech State Bobcats? My name is Jamian Lebron, and welcome to the Step Up Podcast, episode 4. What's going on? Good morning, everybody. Look, so today, I'm going to be honest with you, we might be cheating a little bit, all right? So for our guest today, we don't have a Texas State student or alumni, but that does not take away how special his story is, all right? So I'm really excited for you all to meet this guest. Before we do that, though, y'all know the drill. We got to go through the CIE events, all right? This week is a little light. Y'all are going to see it soon, but Wednesday, October 1st, we have our usual Workshop Wednesday, all right? Budgeting and QuickBooks with Denise Jackson, all right? If you're interested in that, once again, that's 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. at the CIE Gathering Space on Alkek 3rd floor. It's a little bit of a mouthful every time I do it, but it's there and everything. And that's it. That's the week. When I told y'all it was going to be light, I really meant it. It's a light week today. All right, sweet. So we got one thing down. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to introduce you all to the guest, all right? So the guest we have today is somebody that I believe has a very unique perspective on life, all right? From having business success at such a young age to now dwindling into starting coaching people, you know what I'm saying? Passing that success on. I feel like this person in the podcast today, we're going to focus on not how you get to the destination, but what you do when we get there. And I think that's a very unique perspective that we can all learn from. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Michigan, I want to introduce you all to Max Feber. What's going on, Max?
What's up? Nice to meet you guys.
Hey.
Good to be here, Jamian.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for being here. This is a cool moment. Thank you so much. So, if you could introduce yourself to the camera, throw out any socials or websites or anything that you want to say.
Absolutely. My name is Max Feber, spelled like fever with a B. Find me on Instagram, LinkedIn. I don't know. Find me wherever. I think I just went private on all my socials recently, so no one's gonna actually be able to find me. But okay. I'm there.
Gotcha.
If you hunt well enough, I'll find. You can get to me.
Okay. I should have interviewed you a year ago then, whenever it was unprivated.
That's right. Everyone, you know what? I just recently privated all my socials for there's nothing on there, but I was just.
It's a good idea.
I don't know, and I was kind of thinking, I'm like, I either am gonna become an influencer or I'm not, and if I'm not. Why do I need to kind of be in this middle ground where everyone can see me but no one's following me? Like,
okay.
So
everyone wants to know the world of Max Feber, dude.
That's right. So, but with that, I will say, I'm private, but not locked.
Gotcha.
So if you want to follow me, you can probably request to follow me, and we'll see.
Okay, we'll see, man. So that's the warning, if y'all will, when y'all go to follow Max Feber. Sorry.
That's good. I get Feber. I get Feber. I get Ferber. I get
really?
Faber. Yeah, don't worry about
that,
it.
Though. My name gets mispronounced. I don't like that. So
Jamian Lebron, I feel like, is an easy name to get once you hear it.
You'll be surprised. When people read it out, like attendance.
Jamian Lebron or something. Yeah. Yeah, right.
Exactly. LeBron's always the same, though.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. So, if you could give us just a summary of your events in your life, you know what I'm saying? From where you got started to where you are now, just some bullet points and everything, just so that we can get started.
Absolutely. So I grew up in Detroit, suburb of Detroit in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was a kid, I've been an entrepreneur, like for life. And I don't really know when this started. I can't pinpoint a time, but I was always doing lemonade stands. I was building photo booths. I was selling, I was doing videos and I was doing everything. I was an entrepreneur. And when I was in high school, I started a company called Brew, which was a direct-to-consumer cold brew coffee startup. Mm-hmm. And I invented this new way to make cold brew coffee at home, which was, I want to emphasize that in 2015, cold brew was not in Starbucks. It was not in Dunkin'. It was not at the grocery store. No one had heard of it. And now everyone listening, you've all heard of cold brew. Everyone's probably drank cold brew.
Yeah.
I started my pitch saying, have you ever heard of cold brew coffee? It's this new type of coffee that's going to change the United States market.
Wow.
And people were like, you're out of your, you're kind of out of your mind. You don't know what you're talking about. And so, it was a way to make it at home before it was kind of popular in grocery. And so it started as a project, right? I built this product. I manufactured it small, started selling it. And it started snowballing, and I got more and more traction, and I got more and more real customers, and I was getting these wholesale clients, which was really exciting. Mm-hmm. I ended up on the Home Shopping Network, where I was pitching it, like you see on TV, and then was fortunate to actually end up on Shark Tank when I was in college. Mm-hmm. Pitched, got 3 offers, took a deal with Mark Cuban, worked with him for about a year and a half, and then I sold the company in 2020 to another Shark Tank brand, where I was able to step back, take a deep breath, and not run the company anymore.
Wow.
And I think you give a great point, which is that, everyone wants to hear about how I did it. And everyone always asks me, they're like, how did you get on Shark Tank? How did you build a company? How did you sell it? What was that like? Mm-hmm. And I think that the people listening to this may or may not be running big companies, but are certainly entrepreneurs and our students, and they know what it's like. It's not any different being a successful entrepreneur versus being a small entrepreneur versus being a failed entrepreneur. It feels the same. But I think that what we should talk about is what happened after that, which is, you sold I sold a company I was building for 5 years.
Yeah.
From 15 to 20, which are like 5 important years.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to talk about what that's like. But, right now what I'm doing, sold it in 2020, it's 2025. Over the last 5 years, I've been working for a handful of different startups, working on projects, consulting a little bit, speaking a little bit, and doing everything I can to coach the next wave of entrepreneurs. Because as I reflect on what enabled Brew to be successful and my companies to be successful, I think, there's so much of it which is attributed to how much I worked and my idea. But there's so much also attributed to everyone that showed up to help and that pushed me and that coached me and that, really helped me kind of get to where I needed to be. And I don't think that either one of those things would have been enough to build a successful company without the other. And so that's why I'm really passionate and excited about kind of bringing the next, paying it forward and helping the next generation, next wave of entrepreneurs any way I can.
Awesome.
Same generation, but
awesome. Okay, great, man. That's really cool. You actually answered like 3 of my questions. So,
Sweet.
I gotta bounce around that now. Thank you for that.
Well, let's just, that's what I mean. Like, let's just talk. We'll figure it out and we'll kind of
man.
have a conversation. That's what you said. Have a conversation.
Have a conversation. That's what
it
it is over here at the Step Up, man. This is no regular podcast, people scripted and everything. Nah, this is genuine, authentic as can be. You know what I'm saying? Okay,
right.
cool. So you said that ever since you were a kid and everything, you have been doing entrepreneurial stuff. You said lemonade stands. You said, you've been doing stuff like that, right? I kind of relate to that. I'm not sure if you know what rainbow looms are.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
you do? Okay. I used to do a lot of that, man. Me and my mom, we used to make looms and sell them at school and everything like that.
My sister
right?
used to do rainbow looms. I think that was actually founded in Michigan, like near where I'm from.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my sister used to do it a ton, and her friends used to sell it. Like everyone had these rainbow loom companies. It was a big deal.
What the heck? I need to go to Michigan.
Dude.
Yeah. That's awesome. So yeah, I was doing the rainbow looms and everything. I was just wondering to you, right? What lessons did you learn doing that? Like what was so fulfilling about, selling lemonade and stuff like that?
It's a good question. I think I was always passionate about making things. And I think that's really what my driver was, is that, why make things like when I would make something, I realized that I would make something that people wanted. And so I was like excited to build a photo booth because I wanted a photo booth at my school and we didn't have one. And so I built one. And then, I sold tickets for $2 or something. But like I sold snow cones in the neighborhood block party because we didn't have snow cones and I wanted snow cones there. Like I always tried to like build things that I wanted and that I knew other people wanted. And for me, the most fulfilling part was having an idea, and this is what your podcast is about, but like having an idea in my mind and turning that idea into something real. And that was so cool.
Yeah. So you learned that at a young age. So that's really cool. You just said that, you built a photo booth because your school didn't have one, and you made snow cones because the place, I can't remember the place. I'm sorry.
I think it was a block party. Yeah.
Okay. The block party didn't have any, right? So since you were a kid, since you were young, you've kind of found a way to look for things that aren't there and give yourself and give your piece to contribute to that, like noticing your school doesn't have a photo booth and providing that for them, So how did you kind of train your brain to kind of naturally see that, like look for what's missing in a room that has a lot, and how did that help you out through the years?
So I wish I had an answer for you. I think that's how I think, and it's how my brain works, and it's how it's always worked, which is like I always was kind of just looking at things and saying, this isn't here, I want it, I'm going to make it happen. As I've gotten older, I've realized that that's not kind of a natural way of thinking for a lot of people. It happened to be for me. So I really anchored it around certain frameworks to understand how to do that. So that I can help coach people who, don't think that way innately. There are a lot of ways I don't think innately that I have to use a lot of techniques that other people can just come up with on the spot. But the biggest one is just what I was taught is called pain storming.
Okay.
Which is just trying to identify pain points. And this is the most important thing. And anyone who's entrepreneurial, anyone who's in the business world will tell you this in a variety of ways. But the most important way to find whether or not a business should be successful is to identify pains. And that just means see where people, and this doesn't mean physical pain, but see where people are experiencing things that need to be fixed. And this could be something as simple as like people want snow cones and there's nobody selling them, and that's a pain. This could be something kind of more significant. But anywhere there's a pain that people are experiencing, there's often room for innovation in kind of business creation, and that's how I always think about it, which is to kind of go from, hey, there's a need here, to let me fix that need, is what was exciting for me.
Gotcha. Okay, identifying the pain points, like you said, right? And what the weaknesses are, what people are complaining about, and seeing that stuff.
That's right.
Okay, that is really impressive. Like you said, not a lot of people have that mindset, so that is really cool. But you said that you were kind of born with that. I think I might know some reason, so I was hoping you could tell me about people like your family. How did people early on in your life, before Shark Tank, of course, right? How did early motivators and everything affect your life? Were you close with your family? Were your family very supportive of all these endeavors you were doing and everything? Like, what was going on there?
So I have a huge family. I have, my immediate family. I have 2 siblings, I have 2 parents.
Okay.
And then my mom has 3 older brothers. My dad has a brother.
Wow.
Each of them have a ton of kids.
Yeah,
and
it's the same here, actually.
Yeah, and so like each of their kids have kids. And now, for the most part, everyone lives in Michigan, where I grew up. I now live in New York City, but everyone really lives in Michigan. And
the Big Apple, holy.
Yeah, so everyone was there for everything, which was a good thing and a bad thing. Which was a good thing because everyone's supporting you. And, a challenging thing because you're constantly getting feedback and coaching, which you're not always asking for. So you learn to accept that. But anyone who has a big family knows that. Like, they understand people are giving you a lot of advice.
Trust me, yeah.
And it was amazing. But I think I was always learning to navigate a lot of objections, because I would have an idea and, my parents, my siblings, and certain cousins would be supportive. And then sometimes, and then other people who I love very much would be like, that's a good idea, but here's a problem, and I would have to think about that. Because I was constantly telling people my ideas. They were constantly pushing back, and I was learning to like challenge my own assumptions in real time. And I think that was a really unique kind of capacity in my upbringing, which is that I had a ton of, I was really kind of accidentally taught critical thinking because I was challenging myself all the time, which is the best. And it was always out of love and support, and it was really impactful. And then I think there's another story which I tell a lot, which I think is really funny, where I was probably 4 years old. And so I don't remember this, but this was told to me.
Okay, gotcha.
And my parents were sitting with me, and I was at the kitchen table, and I took a bottle of glue, like Elmer's glue.
Okay.
And I took the cap on
where this is going.
I dumped the whole bottle over the table.
Okay.
And I just started smearing it around and like playing with it. My dad walks in, and he was less than pleased. He was like, "What are you doing? You're making a mess. This is crazy. Stop it." And I don't remember this again. So this is how it was retold to me. My mom looked at my dad and she's like, shh, stop it. Like, don't tell him to stop playing with the glue. Let him play with the glue, because this builds creativity. This is how he's going to learn. This is how he's going to like learn to experience the world.
Wow.
And now, by the time I was in my 20s, my mom looked at me and she goes, "I never should have let you play with that fucking glue. Like, you just completely are ripping apart my garage, building things. This is awful." But, it was really, I think that I was just often supported in a way that I'm really grateful to have been supported, which is like, I wanted to build something, people would help me build it.
Wow.
And not to mention the fact that I have my grandfather, my dad's dad, was an entrepreneur his whole life. He owned his own, pharmacy, and he was like a lifelong entrepreneur and supported his whole family on that.
That's amazing.
My mom's grandparents, came to America and supported themselves and survived because they were able to build stores and companies and support themselves. And I think that was always so exciting to me.
So your family has had a history of resilience then.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Yeah. I think. Yeah, I mean, look, this is like very tangential to the story. We don't have to talk about it. But my mom's parents are both Holocaust survivors. Okay. And they both came to America when they were, my mom's dad came here when he was in his teens, and my mom's mom came here when she was a little younger than that. And both of them, have families who came to America with almost nothing. Wow. And not only with almost nothing, but after having everything and having that everything just taken from them and stripped away.
Wow.
And so they were like, we have to survive. And they built stores. And so my grandma grew up in Detroit, where, her dad owned a store. It was a dime store, which is now like a dollar store. And she lived in the back room. And, the front room was the store. And she was allowed to have one toy. Wow. And she, that's how they grew up. And I think he was entrepreneurial enough to know that they, my kind of grandparents eventually met. My grandfather became a pathologist. He was a doctor forever. All their kids were doctors and lawyers, and like they all built the success of themselves.
Man.
And not only they're entrepreneurial, and I think this is something that's lost, but they were entrepreneurial forever, building companies. But they also were incredibly strong believers of the value of an education and how important it is to just always be learning and be educating yourself and not think you know everything.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I think the famous quote that they always said was that, and this is a quote I think that anyone who's experienced a lot of resilience can identify with, but they in particular, they always said, an education is the only thing that nobody can ever take away from you. And I think that's true, which is that, your skills and what you know.
Oh, that's good.
It's
Hold on,
true.
that's really good.
And you can lose a company, you can lose a job, you can lose a business, you can lose people. The only thing that you can kind of really hold forever is what you know and how you learn it. And I think that also was ingrained in me as a kid, which is that you need to be learning from everybody and you need to be kind of, building for yourself, which was very cool.
That's beautiful. That is really beautiful, man. And education is the only thing nobody can take away from you. And yeah, you're right. That is very true. You can lose so much in this life, but one thing you can't lose is your mind and like what you know, unless this is Alzheimer's or something. But like stuff like that's beautiful. Yeah, and education is one of the strongest things ever. So it's these lessons and the fact that you've grown up with these people that have gone through these trials and tribulations and everything that have kind of formed the entrepreneurial mindset in your mind, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are so many factors. I think it's so I can't sit here and tell you the recipe that created me as an entrepreneur. I think my family was a huge part of it. There are a million other parts of it, but I think let's talk about my family. You can't talk about my family and the way I grew up without talking about their whole story. And so that's what's impactful about it.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, man. So yeah, okay, cool. So 2015, right? Started your brew business, okay? And you said that cold brew was something very unknown at the time, right? And I can't contest. I remember cold brew. It wasn't until like 2021 when it started flooding through my school. Yeah, it was. Oh my gosh, I remember they would start selling stuff at like the beginning of the day, like before assembly and everything. Yeah, that was back in 2021. But 2015, it was very unknown. Okay, and you said when you were going and starting your business and everything, you were like, cold brew is gonna be the new biggest thing, right? You said that people claimed you were out of your mind, right? And they weren't very big on you. So this happens a lot, I remember when Uber was coming out, right? People were like, okay, Uber, nobody wants to walk in a stranger's car and like, do stuff like that. They called those people out of their mind as well. I was wondering your resilience towards that, keeping the negative stuff from, I'm assuming family members, I'm assuming teachers, other mentors and everything that like, okay, like, dude, cold brew, really? Keeping that to the side and sticking to your guts. How were you able to do that?
So look, I think a lot of people also were there supportive, which were people telling me it was a good idea and they liked it.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that happened too. I think I don't want to credit myself with inventing cold brew because I didn't do that. Okay. And I certainly cannot be credited for like bringing cold brew to America and making it a big deal.
Okay.
I think I saw a trend, which I knew was real and I knew was substantiated by data, and I really knew was a growing segment. Like there was a million quantitative factors that back me up here, which is that like cold brew was growing year over year. It was hugely popular. Iced coffee and cold drinks and drinking home, and the whole coffee segment was growing, and people were looking at me saying I was wrong. And I knew that they were kind of making, and so you're saying, how did I trust my gut? I think the actual answer here is that I was trusting the data and they were telling me I was wrong based on their gut. And that was the difference, is that I knew, like, listen, I listened to everybody and I was respectful of everybody, and I totally heard their perspectives. And I said, look, you might not be my customer, you might not be my market, but the data is showing you're wrong. And the data is growing this market, and this segment is like really kind of, gonna be big. And I think that's what I was able to hold on to, which was really, at the time, exciting. And
yeah, I'm sure.
As I sat down with people and I walked them through it, I think they would start to realize that it was a growing segment. It was just kind of an instinctual, immediate reaction that they were often kind of negative to.
Kind of, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Something new always has, normally a negative reaction to that.
And I know you said you want to talk about more of this later, so we can get there. But, in terms of like kind of how you have to have conviction and manage your ego and all these other pieces. Which
yeah. Yes, that is coming up. That is
Okay.
coming up. Don't worry. I'm still on that. I did just want to kind of go through like, how you got to that place, and then we're gonna move on later. What I wanted to say, um so hold on, I'm trying to write my notes. I be typing sometimes
No worries.
and the words just be getting jumbled up. Okay, gotcha. So then with this, right, cold brew, right? It's still unknown, and now you're positioned in a place where you have to pitch it to some very important people, right? Shark Tank, for instance. Um, how do you allow yourself to pitch something that isn't really like pitch something that's not very known, a new idea, right? How do you promote a new idea in your sense?
Mm, that's a good question. I think on Shark Tank specifically, by the time I was there, so I filmed in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Cold brew was becoming, people knew about cold brew. They
Mm-hmm.
knew it was a trend. They knew it was a segment. And so I was timed perfectly to say, listen, I am building the best way to make cold brew coffee at home.
Mm-hmm.
And they would hear that. And I would also say, look, cold brew's a growing market. Here's where it's going. Here's where it is. I'm the best person to build. I'm the best company to build this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I framed it. And I think I just, at the beginning, I had to do a lot of education of my audience. And what that meant is I had to know that I was right
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that I knew cold brew was a growing market.
Gotcha.
I knew a lot of people would like it and did like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to just kind of teach a little bit about what this new amazing innovation could be.
Mm-hmm.
And people were often receptive to it, but a lot of it was consumer education and helping people realize that they did like cold brew. And and also
It's a funny sentence, helping people realize they
that's
like
true.
it. Yeah.
And also listening when people genuinely didn't.
Mm.
Because a lot of people genuinely didn't. You had to listen to them, and that was a data point. And you have to weigh that against all the positive feedback. But those are both real pieces of information that you have to evaluate. And so
Mhm.
I often sat with people and I helped them make it. I mean, I would go to people's house who bought a product for $30.
Uh-huh.
I would drive to their house. I would stand with them in their kitchen and I would teach them how to make it.
Wow.
And I would teach them how to use it. And I would spend an hour with somebody over a $30 product that I was making $15 off of.
Wow.
And I would just teach them how to use it. And what then happened is they told their friends and their friends told their friends and people were started to use it. And it became a real thing, which was awesome.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So now, based on all of this, right? Now we're getting to the part here, right? So now you've pitched your idea and everything. You've gotten success now, right?
Mhm.
Brew is established. I also want to ask you, like, Brew, BRUW.
That's right.
I'm not the best at naming stuff.
Okay.
So like, what was the motivation
Oh,
behind the
I
name
have
and
no
everything?
idea.
Like,
I get this question all the time. I have no idea.
Yeah?
It just happened. The website was available. Yeah, there was
Darn,
not a lot
man.
of. There's no story.
darn, man. I thought I was gonna be like, yeah, man. I looked at it and it
No,
was this.
there's no story.
All right. Well, okay.
This is how well, I think it was either Amazon or somebody else named their company this way, where they was like, oh, the website was available. It sounded nice. That's it. And that's
okay.
how mine was built.
I mean, yeah, it does sound pretty cool. I got you. Okay, sweet. So, with all this success and everything, right? So now you've had this idea that is pretty unknown, and you've made it known to people. All right. On top of that, you also had success on Shark Tank and everything like that. All right. So now you're getting all of this stuff. You're getting all this feedback, getting all this stuff and everything. How has ego ever played a role in your life? Okay, I can speak like this. For me, I've known somebody, right? He had something on. I'm not sure if he was consecrated or he had a brand or something, right? This is in high school,
Mhm.
all right? And he was also making success early on, okay? What happened with him though was since he was being successful and he was getting a lot of profit off of it, people around him weren't, right? Or not yet, anyways. So other students or other teachers or anybody older than him, younger than him, same age or anything, if they would ever give advice, he would ignore all of it,
Mm.
right? And he wouldn't take in anything because he would believe I already know more than you. I'm already like that, you know? Did you ever have a moment that was ever like that? Did ego ever play a role in your life? Did you not let ego play a role in your life? And how did you navigate with that?
Okay, so I never had that specifically.
Gotcha.
I think, and so I mean I've been a founder over 10 years since I started Brew, right?
Congratulations, 10 years.
Thank you. And I mean, look, I was a founder before that too, but the what that means is that I've seen a lot.
Mhm.
And I've seen a lot of founders, I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs, I've seen a lot of companies, I've seen a lot succeed, a lot fail, and I've done a lot of coaching.
Mhm.
And so I have a big data set to pull from here. And I know for a fact that the entrepreneurs who don't listen to anybody and shut everyone out and say, I know everything, I'm perfect, this is great, that nobody else is doing anything, they're wrong. they almost always fail. Like it's just, I mean, there's data to substantiate this. They almost always fail. They are not successful. And this applies to kind of executives in corporate, in Fortune 500s and larger companies. People that are not willing to learn from people who are less successful than them or more successful than them always fail.
What do you mean by fail? What does that mean?
I mean, and I think we should back up too to like go anchor that. I think we should go back to anchor this in a little bit of an example around the company. But I think there is a mindset that a lot of entrepreneurs have, which is, I'm making X amount a month on this business. You haven't done shit. Why would you tell me what to do? Why would I listen to you? And it's just wrong. I mean, you have something to learn from everybody. Like, you literally have something to learn from everybody. I think that there is not one person in this world you can't learn something from. And if you say, I know everything, that's it. Like, what's the point? I mean, seriously, like, how are you ever going to grow? How are you ever going to improve if you think that you can do everything on your own? And I'm not saying that you need to, you shouldn't take every single thing everyone says to heart, because a lot of people are wrong. I'll give you that. Like, a lot of people have bad advice. A lot of people have very bad advice.
Yeah.
But you should still listen to everybody and have genuine conversations with everybody. And if somebody is telling you something that you disagree with, talk to them about it and kind of people don't give unsolicited advice because they want you to fail, right? They give you unsolicited advice because they want you to succeed. And so that must have some value. Even if the advice is bad and you realize the advice is bad, just to listen to them and kind of hear them out,
They're
I think
still wanting to give you, help out in any way.
I think that a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I think that it's important to just kind of keep your ears open. And this is true, like if you're managing people too, right? I mean, take that guy who's an entrepreneur and apply this to being a manager. Who would you rather have as a manager? Would you rather have somebody who says, you're my employee, you're less successful than me, I'm not going to listen to a word you say because I know everything and I'm the manager and you're the employee and I'm more qualified, you're less qualified, you're wrong. Or the manager that says, whoa, thank you for bringing this to my attention, I didn't see it that way, let me look into this. And the employee might not be right, but at least their ideas are heard and they feel valued and they're in an environment and in a place where they feel like they kind of
want to be in or something.
Yeah, I mean, who would you rather have? And the answer's obvious.
Yeah.
And so that's how I feel about it. I think that it's And then I'll also say that like I was surrounded by people that were helping me always and that were willing to help me and willing to give me advice. And I would not have been able to build a company without people that were there supporting me.
Hey, I was gonna ask that. I was gonna be like, okay, without these people, would you be in the same area that you're in now?
I mean, there were people that were giving me legal advice. There were people giving me financial advice. There were people helping with my accounting. Like I mean, they were really helping me. And I think that a lot of people gave me advice that I didn't listen to. And a lot of people gave me advice that I did listen to and was really helpful. And, I think the skill comes not in talking to people or not talking to people, but in knowing how to take all that information in, weigh it, evaluate it, and decide what of it is actually real and what you kind of can ignore.
So then it's more than just data. Even if somebody is making less sales or something than another person, right? It's not about that. It's also about the person behind it. You're saying it's more than just the data that's presented up front.
Well, why? I mean, let's talk about this. Because he probably let's say he made $20,000 in a month.
Okay.
Right? Let's say 20 grand a month. The college business, that's a lot of money. 20 grand a month.
Yeah.
That's for for a company not in college, for a Fortune 500.
Yeah.
It's nothing. That's not a lot. It's it's a big deal for him. It's a big deal for the company, but it's not like it's, if you're in Amazon, $20,000 a month is really like nothing.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's important to remember that the data is just one point of information. And there are a lot of smart people, who don't want to make $20,000 a month on an online company. That's not their goal. And they're going to become doctors, and they're going to become, I mean, you're in college, they'll become doctors, they'll become lawyers, they'll become professors. They're very, very smart people. And they're not, they're doing less than you. There's a reason that Fortune 500 CEOs hire consultants. The consultants might be less paid, they might be less successful, but they are advisors. I mean,
that's a good way to look at it.
Well, I mean, look at let's even take this beyond business. Like, look at all of history, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years of history. Every leader, every king, every president, every single person who was a successful figure in history had advisors. And those advisors were almost always less successful by any quantitative metric, but they valued their opinions. And that doesn't mean that their opinions are less valuable just because they're not the king.
Wow. Wow. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Even successful people hire other people that, sure, maybe they're less successful, but they still have good advice to give. They still have a good outlook and stuff to provide to that person.
Yeah. I mean, look, I have a lot to say about it. I think that if you are, I'll say,
cool. I've never had a conversation like this.
Sure,
Yeah.
I'll say it very simply. I think that if you have an ego in business, you will fail. And I just don't believe you'll be successful.
Wow.
You might succeed, you might make some money, but you will not be as successful as you could be.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's beautiful, man. Thank you. Okay, great. So then even now, right? Now that you've, moved away from Brew and everything, for you, yourself, have you ever struggled with ego now? Like, even if you're like, I've already had a business, I've established it and everything like that, right? Do you find yourself oftentimes, maybe even accidentally, like, oh yeah, I know more than this person? Or even when you have students, like we saw the pitch competition 2 days ago, right? The students coming up to you and pitching in front of you, right? Did you feel like, oh, is there like a imbalance here? Like, I'm smarter. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, look, I think that there is. I think that feeling that look, when a student's pitching to me,
Mm-hmm.
I often do have things to teach them. I do know more than them. I have more experience than them.
Mm-hmm.
The people on that panel had more experience than me. They had more to teach me. There are two ways I could approach that. I could sit there and say, wow, you're an idiot. I know so much more than you. Get out of here. Or I could do what I'm here to do, which is to say, let me help you see, on the panel, I don't know if I won't speak specifically, but there's a student who pitched us
Mm-hmm.
who, presented two kind of conflicting financial metrics, and they were wrong. And then if you were in an investment meeting, you'd be, kicked out of it. But we were in a student panel,
Mm-hmm.
and I said to him, I'm like, these numbers don't add up. Here you're saying it's going to cost, $5 to make per product. This number says it's going to cost 20 cents to make per product.
Mm-hmm.
You seem like a smart kid. Let's figure it out. Like, how do we actually identify which is right?
Wow.
And I was able to sit with him and teach him how to frame those metrics in that document to make it appear more professional and real.
Wow.
And I could have said, you're an idiot, and walked away. And he's not an idiot. And that wouldn't serve him at all.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't serve me. Like, I don't understand what I would gain from that. And
it would just be a waste of time at that point. Yeah.
And I do know what I gain from helping him, which is that I am able to kind of structure my thinking around it, and I'm able to look at it and dive into this problem and help him solve it and build relationships with people. And I think that's what the ultimate goal of business should be. So a really good mentor of mine, Susie Welch, she's the director of the Impact and Flourishing or the Purpose and Flourishing Initiative at NYU. And she is the CEO of Becoming You Labs. And she does this, I was on her podcast. It was great if you want to listen to that. But
Okay,
she was,
sweet. I'll take some notes.
yeah, she talks a ton about finding your purpose and your identity in life.
That's good.
And she has this amazing approach to it. But what she says is she talks a lot about networking, and she hates it. She's like, I hate networking. It's stupid. She says it much more.
Interesting.
She says it more academically than that.
Okay.
But she says, instead of just talking to people and thinking about what you can gain from them, just make genuine friendships. And I just build real, genuine, structured relationships with people. And, you never know where they'll lead. And when you become friends with somebody today, you don't know where they'll be in 10 years, and you don't know where you're going to be in 10 years. And you don't know how that friendship might serve you or not. And so she tells a story of how she, became really close friends with, I think it was the driver of her city council person, or local community board member. In New York, these are small kind of elected officials that manage, a handful of she was talking to his driver, and having a driver in New York is not such a flex. Everyone, a lot of people have a driver.
Okay, talk to him.
And she was just chatting with him, and he was talking, and they became friends over time. And years and years and years later, I think that driver became the driver for, either I wasn't the mayor or the governor. It was somebody very significant in politics, or that driver had a position in the mayor's office or something, and she needed help with something politically, and she was able to text him, and he was able to get her a meeting. And had she not built a relationship with this taxi driver or this car driver, who a lot of people that have the mindset of the guy you're talking about would never have done.
Yeah.
They would never, I mean, it's a way, you would not have had that outcome years later. And so I mean, look, I don't want to speak to her story, but I think that it's important to just build genuine relationships with people and understand that you are seeing somebody at a moment in their life, and that they might have a very bright future that you can help them achieve by investing in them now and have these relationships going forward. And so,
Yeah.
The $20,000 a month on Amazon versus $2,000 a month on Amazon is pretty much negligible over a 50-year lifespan. Not lifespan, career span. Excuse me.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. It's instead of looking at somebody, as what you can gain, right? Because I'm sure that woman could have just been like, oh, like this is my driver, I can just gain miles from him, It was building that relationship. So then it's like, I guess how do you separate like how do you separate yourself from looking at something that is, like gainable, like, oh, I'm talking to this guy, he has this that he can offer me. How do you separate that instead and be like, okay, this is a guy in my life right here, right now, and let me take this time to get to know him and do that? Or I guess maybe I just answered my own question.
No, it's a good question. I think, you know, I think there's 2 points. And the first point is that you have to manage your ego. And I was fortunate that I don't have fortunately, I don't feel that I have a very innate ego. I've never felt like somebody who has like a complex where I think I always feel like I'm kind of the person in the room that has a lot to learn.
Huh.
And that's just how I am.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And well, it's a good thing and a bad thing. And I'll walk through it. But I think,
Okay,
so first of all, you have to manage your ego.
Okay.
And second, you need to, like you said, build genuine relationships. And I'll start with the second, which is that when you're building genuine relationships, you have to talk to people. You have to hear about their experiences. You have to learn about, learn from them. And you can't think about what they're going to give you. You just have to, be in a room and talk to somebody, and that's it. And, that doesn't mean you need to like plant seeds or invest in them or do anything. It just means you have to be nice to people and build relationships with people. And maybe they'll, maybe those relationships will turn into something, and maybe there'll be somebody to get a drink with, and that's it. Like it doesn't mean, you can't think of it from a transactional perspective.
Yeah.
In terms of managing your ego, there is a teaching I really love, which is this old, kind of ancient story of a guy who said you have to carry 2 pieces of paper in each of your pockets. So one on your left and one on your right.
Gotcha.
And one of them would say, the entire universe is created for me, and I'm the center of the universe. And the other piece of paper says I'm nothing but dirt and ashes, and that's it. And you have one in each pocket.
2 very polarizing points.
And so when you are, feeling like you're on top of the world, and you feel like you're smarter than everybody, and you feel like you're a genius, remember that you're just kind of carbon and dust and ashes, and that's it. And, you're just a human being in the universe, which is pretty insignificant. And when you feel pretty insignificant, which a lot of people feel, and you feel down and you feel like you're, kind of have nothing to gain or nothing to give, you look at the other piece of paper, which says the whole universe was created for me and that I am the whole world. Which is also which doesn't mean that you're more important than anybody else, but it means that you as the whole world have something to, give to every single person around you.
Gotcha.
And you look at each of those, and I think the optimal strategy is a very corporate word here, but the kind of best line to walk isn't to feel like you're nothing, and isn't to feel like you're the center of the universe, but it's to feel that line down the middle, which is that, I have self-confidence, I believe in myself, I feel good about where I am in this world, and I have something to give and something to gain from every single person around me. And I think that's the, kind of, optimal point that we should all strive for.
Gotcha. That's really cool. Okay, good. So then, yeah, maintaining your ego, building genuine relationships and everything. I think that the way that we have this interaction, for instance, I think that that's a good way that's beyond networking a little bit, Instead of oh, hey, yeah, nice to meet you and everything. Let me get your LinkedIn. Let's connect,
Yeah.
We sat down, we had dinner, and on top of that, we're having conversations. I know this, like this could just be looked at as I'm doing this for my job or something like that, but I'm taking genuine notes.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to you and I'm having conversation and everything. So taking that extra step, instead of just, hey, thank you so much for, meeting with me. Let's get LinkedIn. Let's, do some stuff and just liking each other's posts and everything. It's asking them out and, being like, hey, like, let's go grab something. I see that you're interested in this. Let's talk about this for a little bit.
And it could even be smaller than that, which is like building real relationships. People could literally just be saying hi. Like, you could just be saying hi to somebody at the desk every morning in the library. So that when you need something, not that this is transactional, but let's say you need something, they'll help you. Or like just being friendly to people and talking to them. And like, it doesn't mean you need this really deep substantive relationship with every single person. It just means you have to build real connection. And I think that's something that's often overlooked in the world of LinkedIn and Instagram and networking, that you have to just build these real relationships. And I mean, those real relationships, by the way, could literally be just being nice to people and talking to them. or asking how they're doing or calling them after, something in their life happens. It's just, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great. Okay, great. So then, okay, good. I know we derailed and talked about ego. Fascinating stuff, man. I did have some other questions and everything. I guess we got to keep the ball rolling. But okay, so wow, that was really good. Thank you.
Okay.
I've never had like a conversation like that. This is like new stuff. I really enjoy this. Okay, sweet. So the brew company you sold in 2020,
Mhm.
right? And you framed it as taking a deep breath. To me, that sounds like it sounds like you were moving away from something that you've had. How do I frame this? I've been doing content my whole life. I've been making a whole bunch of different videos, and there was a point these last 2 years I've kind of drifted away from it. I don't want to use the word burnout because I don't think that that's I don't think that's the best word. But like, have you ever dealt with something similar to that? Like from what take a deep breath meant, it meant that you
Yeah.
were working on this project for a long time, and I could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that when you are an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
you have to work your ass off to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you just do. And at the same time, being an entrepreneur is one of the only sectors in the world where you can work and work and work and work and put everything you have into something and still fail. It just like it doesn't matter. Like, your work is a day, it's one aspect of what might make you successful, but it's not a guarantee. And so, 5 years running a company, I felt like I had worked my ass off. I felt like I'd made the right decisions. There's also a huge component of luck that plays into it, which is that, you have to get the right meetings with the right people. Things have to line up properly.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I sold it, I the deep breath was like, I finally could just kind of relax in saying I did it. Like, I'm done. Like, the game is over. We won. Like, take a deep breath. Like, because otherwise the 5 years there's no closure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're always like playing. You're never stopping. And then when you sell a company, I'd stop playing. And I had won the game. And that's what I think that relief felt like to me. Not that I was burnt out, but that I was relieved to be kind of finished. And so Mark Cuban,
Gotcha.
who invested in me, always talks about business as the most competitive sport.
Mm-hmm.
In his book, he talks about it as the most competitive sport because there's no off switch. Like, you don't ever walk off the field. As soon as you start, you're playing, and your competitors are playing, and you're competing, and nobody wins until you leave. And then you might win, you might lose. And so, like, that's what the deep breath meant. I think.
Okay.
I'll speak about burnout though, because I think that it's an important piece.
Please, yeah.
When I was in college, I was I mean, look, I worked really hard. I had been running the company for years. I ran it for 5 years, from high school to college. And I was very disciplined about what that meant for me. And that meant that I was, I was waking up at 6. I was working out. I was going to class at 8.
Mm-hmm.
I would come home from class at 2. I would work until 7. I'd get dinner, maybe see a friend for an hour, and I'd go to sleep at 10 o'clock. And like, that was my day in college.
How do you even merge that? That's
And
so
it's
much
tough.
you're merging, and you still make an 8-hour sleep.
And that's right.
That's impressive.
You have to get 8 hours of sleep, and we can talk about that later. But I
Yeah.
still, like, I really believe in it. But that was my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working really hard, and at the same time, I was making sure that I had rest. And so I had people who I knew who were starting companies their sophomore, junior year of college, and they would wake up, they would sit, and they would work at their computer until 4 a.m. And that's all they did every single day. They would work and work and work and work. And I told them, and I said to every single one of them, I said, you will not succeed. I said, working until 4 a.m. every day is going to be great for the first 3 months, maybe the first 6 months, and then you're going to burn out and the company's going to fail because you're going to need a week off and you're going to freak out and you're going to have a breakdown. And almost every single one that happened to.
Wow.
Almost everyone's company failed because they, and I'm not saying
that's a real thing.
I'm not saying they shouldn't work hard. You should, but you also need, like, working hard doesn't mean just putting in sheer hours. It means disciplining yourself to do the work and take care of yourself and take care of school and take care of your family, and which I wasn't doing in college, but I would do now, and spend time with people around you. Like, you have to make sure that your life is sustainable, and that balance might mean you're working 12 hours a day and you're seeing people too. But like, that's, I think, was important. And there were a handful of entrepreneurs who I said that to that have built ridiculously massive companies. And I'm very proud of them. And I think, and if they hear this, they know who they are. But they have really built these big companies, and they're an anomaly. But it's, for the most part, you have to just prioritize taking care of yourself. And when I say that, I'm not saying to lean into self-care and only take care of yourself. I'm saying that you need to work and work your ass off, and work in a way that lets you work forever. And that's what it is. And that like that doesn't mean taking 2 weeks off because you need a vacation because you're tired. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying you need to work in a way that allows you to work forever. If you start a company, you are married to that company until it's done.
Mm-hmm.
It is harder to sell a company than it is to do almost anything. Like you are locked into that.
Wow. Yeah.
And so you either can and so that's the thing is like, let's say, if you start a company, you have to be prepared to be married to it for 10 years. And that means you have to be able to work in a way that you're going to sustain for 10 years. And that does not mean working until 4 a.m. every day because that's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's always how I focused on it. But
Wow.
I mean, there were from a personal perspective, there were a million times when I felt like everything was going to shit. I felt awful. My sales were down 1 month. Contract fell through. And I think that being an entrepreneur is really interesting because it is Mark Cuban said it's the most competitive sport,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also just completely a mental sport. It is. I feel strongly that the hardest part of entrepreneurship is the mental game,
Yeah.
and like the work itself isn't that hard, right? The work itself of calling your customers and talking to them and shipping products, like it's hard work, but it's
Mhm.
not. It's not that challenging from a kind of intellectual perspective. I think the hardest part, at least for me, I don't want to speak for everybody, is balancing that mental game, which is that you have to keep yourself disciplined and you have to keep yourself motivated and you have to keep yourself locked in
Mhm.
and remember that you're doing it for a reason and anchored. And, there are times when you feel amazing and on top of the world and like the highs are higher than anything else. Being on Shark Tank is a high that I cannot compare to anything.
Wow.
And the lows are equally as bad. And I think you have to learn how to navigate that. And that's the hardest part about it. And when you learn how to navigate that, then you can also kind of make that's when you build something that's really sustainable and that you can do for a long period of time.
Mhm.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, that kind of ties into what you were saying. On Friday, you said something along the lines of I can't remember the whole quote, but you said there's two ways. Like there's ways to look at life. You can look at life through all the highlights, and all the like points in different areas, But you just described looking at life in general. Like the life of a company, for instance, or the life of an entrepreneur, like just getting that whole area, and that area does include taking care of yourself and not grinding all the time.
And I think that there is so in the world of entrepreneurship, I think in every career there are highs and lows, right? There are like ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And the amplitude of those ups and downs in the world of entrepreneurship, which means the kind of peaks and valleys, are higher. So instead of being like this, it's like this. And you have to ask yourself genuinely if that is right for you, because it's not right for everybody. And entrepreneurship is amazing because it is, in my opinion, the great equalizer. It's what allows anybody to be successful if they put enough work in.
Uh-huh.
And it is probably the worst way to make money on earth. Like if you want to, like, and this is like taking us into a totally another direction. But so many people come to me and they say, I want to be an entrepreneur and I want to make money. I want to have passive income. I want to build a company that pays my bills.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to have to work that hard and I want to, make a living. And entrepreneurship is not that path. Like entrepreneurship is something that you like, if you want to just make a lot of money and retire at 60, you should become a plumber. And I'm not kidding. Like you should,
I see what
you should go to medical school. You should become a lawyer. You should, go get a job in finance. Like you're not like
starting a business it sounds freaking hard.
It's hard. It's hard and it doesn't have a guarantee of success.
Mm-hmm.
And over a 50-year career, maybe you get lucky and can pay yourself, pay your bills. But it is really like not, you have to be an entrepreneur for the love of the game. And that's it.
Yeah.
And I think that,
like that for the love of the game.
well, some people are successful. The vast majority of entrepreneurs can kind of barely get by.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to do it because you love it. And that's it. That's the answer. Like you have to be an entrepreneur for the love of the game and not because you want to make a lot of money on it. Because it's not the best way to make a lot of money at all.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I very much agree. Awesome. All right, we got the last 10 minutes here before the hour mark hits. So look, I'm gonna start talking about how life is kind of right now. You mentioned to me, that's not the real time, by the way.
Okay.
That says not 19. Yeah, it's not. It's 10:21 right now.
Okay.
But look, so you said on Friday something along the lines of most business people they coach a lot of their life, or they're in the background, they're doing stuff and they want to be a player, right? You, on the other hand, you feel the reverse. You've been playing a lot of your life and now you're kind of in the mode where you want to coach,
Yeah.
right? So some questions for you now. Has that shift been a steady shift where you're like, okay, I'm kind of stopped, wanting to do my own stuff and everything. I kind of want to help out the next generation. Has that been a steady shift? Has that been, I shouldn't say next generation, current generation.
Yeah, right. Or the next
Excuse me.
wave. Like we're all, we're 6
Yeah.
years apart or something. So
Excuse me. Has that been there? Also on top of that, did you always view yourself eventually becoming a coach? Or do you always view yourself as doing your own stuff, being an entrepreneur? And I guess, yeah, looking back to your younger self, to you now, have you seen this trajectory?
So it's a good question. I think the way I framed this is I got a question a couple weeks ago from someone who says, "You're an entrepreneur. You know, uh, almost everyone I know who works in corporate America or is a consultant or, is kind of advising, they are always itching to start something because they say, I have been coaching and coaching and coaching and building strategies and writing the playbook, and I want to get in the game. I haven't done anything." And my perspective is I have been playing and playing and playing for 10 years with a ton of coaching. And now, my knees hurt and I'm ready to retire from playing. And like, I want to coach and I want to help people because I want to show people what worked for me and what didn't work for me. Because if there's so many other people that are making mistakes that I see as avoidable and so many people doing things that are successful that I never would have thought of. But I want to help. And so I think I always saw myself, as soon as I started having a little inkling of success with Brew, I told myself, I said, one day I'm going to sell this company and I'm going to, kind of start a way to help pay it forward to the next generation of entrepreneurs and coach them.
Oh,
and
okay.
I always saw
from the
that.
beginning. Okay, gotcha.
I never knew exactly what it would look. I mean, look, I still don't know what it's going to look like. I had that as a guiding star. I don't know if that's going to be, consulting for. I didn't know that was going to be consulting for companies necessarily. I didn't know if that was going to be kind of sitting and coaching entrepreneurs. I didn't really know what that was going to look like, but I always knew it was something I wanted to do, and so I'm really happy to be able to kind of be in the position now where I can, in a very small way, help support and coach the next wave of entrepreneurs.
Gotcha.
But that was always exciting for me.
That's really awesome. Yeah. Okay, cool. So you kind of seen that outlook and you're still living through it today, like you said. So you're still learning new stuff and everything. All right.
And
a few more. No, the battery freaking passed. Hold on.
Okay.
We're going to interview. I've never had this happen to me before. So what we're going to do, we're going to have it like this.
Great. That's
That
fine.
has actually never happened to me before. Oh my gosh.
No worries.
You're like the freaking magic guest.
Okay, so let me if you're ready, I'll say one more thing. Okay, so
Gotcha.
I'll add one more point to this, which is that you kind of wanted to talk about what happens after entrepreneurship. And from when I was 15 to when I was 20, I was building a company. What that meant is I was known as the coffee kid, the brew kid, the kid with the company, the kid and like eventually the kid on Shark Tank, which is really cool. But I was always building something.
You had a lot of labels on you.
Yeah, but like that became my identity for a long time, and I think that's not unreasonable. But that was what I was. That's who I was for years. Is I was the kid who was an entrepreneur and building a company, and I sold it, which was amazing. And all of a sudden, you kind of have to realize who you are without your work and without your company. And I think that's something that I made the mistake of not realizing, which is like who do you want to be when you're kind of standing there with nothing.
Gotcha.
And not that I had nothing. I was very fortunate to sell the company. But like that, the question is like, who do you want to be when you're by yourself? And, what I answered is that I said I wanted to help people and I wanted to coach and I wanted to push and I wanted to like help build more companies because, building companies and building jobs and, kind of creating impact is really special. And so
wow,
that's kind of how I thought about it.
Moving past everything, stripping down and seeing who you are as a person and going from there. I really like that. I got just two more things if I can take a little bit more of your time.
Yeah, I have time.
Gotcha. Okay, so first off, right, and I'm just gonna say these two things. First off is as a college student myself, what would you say that we were to focus on if we were to be entrepreneurs? What do you think would be the skill set? Would it be focus on socializing, focus on studies, focus on like branding, advertising, focus on I guess separating yourself from others? Like if you had to pick two, like 1 to 3 traits about like what you should really hone in and focus on early on, what would it be? And then secondly, It's the final question. If you have any advice to give to any young entrepreneurs or any college students or anything, what would it be? So
Yeah. Okay. I'll answer your first one.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to say two things. The first is talk to everyone you can and learn anything from anybody. I believe that. Just remember that there's always somebody to learn from, and you can learn something from anyone. Might not be, whatever. Most people. I think as a student entrepreneur, I always get the question, how do you balance your social life? How do you balance school? How do you balance work, homework? Like, the answer for me is that the most important thing you do as a student entrepreneur, and as an entrepreneur, or as just a person in general, is learn to build a level of self-discipline. And that's around everything you want to do. And that might mean like you are structured in how much time you're working on yourself, how much work on your company, and how much you're investing in your relationships, and how much you're studying. Like, they don't be kind of at the mercy of your moods that day, which is like, oh, I'm in the mood to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm in the mood to do this. Like, and I think that that's something that I did a lot as a student, where I was at the mercy of kind of how I was feeling at any given time. And it's a mistake I made, and I wish, like, looking back, I think I would have been more successful had I been a little more structured with how I was focusing my time. But that's the advice that I would give to anyone, which is learn how to build your day around what you know needs to happen and not what you want to be doing.
Wow.
And that might mean, by the way, that doesn't mean you're working 24 hours a day. That might mean you're working, and that might mean having the discipline to shut off your work and do the other things that are important to you. Because as a college student, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to still be a college student and like still have a life. I think that it's, the question again is like, who do you want to be without your company? That's something you still have to answer. And, life kind of can't pause for all the years at your company. And so somebody just said this. I just saw this quote. It might have been David Goggins. It might have been like somebody more kind of religious. I don't know who said it. But they said if you are not disciplined, you are kind of indentured to the world around you. Which is that, if you're not disciplined, you are a slave to your emotions, and you're a slave to your moods and to how you're feeling, and that you are not free if you're undisciplined, but you are controlled by everything else other than what you actually want to do. And that if you are a disciplined person, if you're a disciplined person, you are controlled by what you know are your goals and what you want to do and how you want to invest your time. And that is actually what, kind of creates a free person to be able to do what they want to do. And this wasn't David Goggins. It was somebody else, but whatever. It's a good quote regardless. Somebody will know who it is.
That's really good.
But that's
being
the
a
truth.
slave to your wills or like what you...
You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they said like an undisciplined, somebody who is undisciplined, like a disciplined person is a free person. And somebody who's not disciplined is
shackled.
Yeah, by everything, which is like, by your moods. You might wake up in a bad mood one day, and if you're not a disciplined person, that's great. That bad mood's controlling you all day.
Yeah.
Or you might, be unmotivated to work on your company, and that's great. If you're not disciplined, you're going to be kind of completely controlled by your lack of motivation for one given day. And everybody has this. Everybody lacks motivation. Everybody lacks kind of feeling good. Nobody feels good every day. But I think the important skill is to be able to do the things that you don't want to do because you know you should do them. And that is not a lack of self-care. I think that is the utmost self-care, which is that you are doing what you know needs to be done for yourself to build the life you want, even when, your kind of bad moods are telling you otherwise. And that's, I think, the best advice I can give.
Wow. Thank you so much. First off, it's talking to everyone you can. You don't know you don't know what people are going to do what. And then on top of that, being disciplined by knowing your goals and what you have to do to get those goals instead of just being a slave to how you're feeling that day or doing something else. That resonates with me specifically. So I really appreciate that.
And I'll say one other thing, by the way, which is that I am going to give a massive, massive, massive disclaimer to that, which is that like life happens and we have to also recognize that we are like, I'm not saying ignore your emotions, ignore your feelings, slack it all aside. I'm saying, this applies when like you wake up one morning and you're like, oh, I don't want to go to work. Great, get up and work. This doesn't apply when you are like experiencing real things or you have like massive loss or tragedy. Yeah, right. Like that's a different circumstance, and I don't want to be
take the time to grieve.
Yeah, like I don't want to be misinterpreted on that. But I think like there are real things that you need to prioritize that are not work. But you have to remember like just to be. And I think a more
if you want something, you gotta want it.
You're right, and I like a more. the kind of gentle way of putting this is to make sure that everything you're doing is, you're doing everything with purpose and you're intentional about everything you do in your life. And that's like, I think the best advice I can give too.
Wow. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so. I'm gonna give a handshake. Thank you so much, man. Seriously, that's amazing. I'm not rushing you, my camera. I'm not sure how much life I have based on the other one. But seriously, thank you so much for coming on here. I think that I, for one, learned a lot, and I'm really hoping that all of you learned something as well, man. This has been amazing. Like I said at the beginning, you have a very unique perspective on life that I don't think a lot of people are able to hear from, And so I'm really grateful to be here, and it means so much to me because it's a little personal, but even just a semester ago, before this summer started, I wouldn't be able to be here in this position. And so the fact that I'm sitting here and I'm able to talk for how much time? I'm able to talk for like an hour
Yeah.
exactly. And I'm able to just sit down and have a conversation. This is super impactful to me. So I seriously thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here. I think it was a great conversation. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Now, before we wrap up, I do gotta put this camera freaking focusing on me. All right, cool. So, wow, we're super close. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on to this podcast. I know that this wasn't 9 o'clock on a Monday, but we're making it happen. You know what I'm saying? So, thank you guys for joining me so much. Like I said, if you are interested in any free entrepreneurial events, all right, follow the CIE on Instagram. That's TXST_CIE. Once again, that's TXSTCIE _ in between the two. And follow our LinkedIn, follow our Instagram. That's the best way to stay up to date. And I look forward to seeing y'all at the events. Make sure you all stay doing great things, Bobcats. And with all that being said, I'm going to see y'all next time. Have a great one.